Hello, welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is David James, and we're here with the County Executive, Julie Giordano.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It seems like you're kind of repeat to our show a lot, which is good.
Anytime.
There's a lot that goes on in the county. I want to ask you first and foremost, what's going on in the county right now?
Oh my gosh, we have so much going on. So we actually have been talking about legislation. So our legislative breakfast is coming up in the next 2 months. It's actually turned into a very big event with 60 to 70 people that actually attend, and there's going to be a lot of things discussed there. So we're just trying to sort of figure that out. What are we taking to Annapolis? What are some things that are going to be good for the county? So we're working on that. Still working through some of our landfill stuff. I know that's something that we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. So we're working through a lot of that. We just had our weekly meetings today. So Mondays are some of our busiest days. So we meet with all of our not all of our department heads, but a good group of our department heads. Talking about different issues and where we're moving forward. Today was our water and sewer meeting with Amanda Pollock, so she was there with us too. So we got a great update on that, moving forward with that. We're working on a lot of different things. A lot of different things. I was working on an MOU today between our sheriff's office and our jail. I know WBOC came out with Sheriff Lewis talking about doing a 287G program, which is working with ICE. Our jail has to be utilized, so there has to be an MOU between our jail and the sheriff's office, because he doesn't, the deputies don't work within the jail, so we're working on that. So there's a lot of different things that were going on. So
okay, so a day in the life of the executive is a busy day.
Always, yes. And like I said, Mondays are definitely one of our busiest. So
wow. How do you keep all that up here?
Well, that's what's really difficult, is that I think that's why we're so mentally exhausted. I think a lot of people think that we just work in the office and then I might go to an event and then that's it. And that's not really the case at all. I was working all weekend on a couple of things, kind of looking at what this MOU is going to look like. So we work kind of all hours, and so I'll be working on some things tonight after a couple meetings as well. So yeah, we work all hours.
Wow. Okay, thank you. You mentioned the landfill. Where do we stand in the landfill right now?
Well, actually, we're in a really good place. Adam gave an update, which I know that you met with Adam Corey before.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Adam Corey is a wonderful individual who used to work for Maryland Department of Environment. He was actually hired as our Director of Environmental Services, but he's also filling in as our landfill superintendent. So God bless him for doing two very large jobs and doing a fantastic job. Based on all of that talk, you heard a lot of critics. Actually, I won't say a lot. You have a lot of people supporting us. You do have a couple critics out there. But what he told us today was that the flow of trash has slowed down. And that's exactly what we needed to see. So, somebody's efforts that, we talked about, are actually working. So we saw, kind of a decrease in trash, which was really good. So we have, so I think people really understand the predicament that we were in. And I was really happy with Adam. He had a group from the Greater Salisbury Committee. There's a group of individuals that came out and toured the landfill and got to see exactly, what it looks like. It's such... I never realized how detailed and how scientific our landfill is, and we are really doing a great job at getting the right people in place. Adam was the first. We have Carissa Gorch. She is our compliance person. She kind of works on the things, she's kind of that liaison between MDE and us and doing the scientific parts of the landfill and where we are. And so we have Jessica, who runs the office out there. So we have some really great people in place, and I think our efforts are paying off. So that's a really good thing. So I was really happy with the progress that he delivered this morning. So.
And I noticed that you actually gave a monumental award to Mr. Corbin out there. He's been out there for 50 years.
Yes, 50 years.
Wow.
50 years he has worked here. And what an amazing gentleman.
I
did not know he was related to Lori Carter, who is our grants administrator. So,
did not know that.
Yeah, they're related. So she was out there. It was so nice. She gave the blessing, and his family was out there, and his church group, family was out there, and just the guys could take a break and come on in and celebrate. And it was really amazing for somebody that's worked here 50 years. I'm not even 50 years old, and he's worked here longer. So.
Well, he's actually a personal friend of my dad, who has actually worked at Purdue for 50 years, and that's how I know about the landfill, because Dad's out there a lot. But I'm pretty sure he could tell you about some of those past plans before you got in there that kind of put us where we're at at right now. Wow. Well, thank you for what you're doing there. It's unique. One of your critics, I actually saw him in a store. They made a comment to me that I think was a good question to ask. What would be the one thing that you would have to accomplish before the end of your term in order to make sure that you're reelected?
Gosh, that is a good question. I think there's so many things that, some of the projects that we talked about tackling, a lot of those campaign promises were so large. How do you say I'm going to fix the water and sewer issue, but we have made such great strides. And one of the things that I would really like to show for that is showing all of the work that we've put forward and starting to get funding for those projects. So we should be hearing in the next couple months, where we are on that in receiving funding and moving forward with the septic elimination projects for Salisbury, and then also where we are with the East Side project, and then of course our West Side project. So I think being able to show a tangible item, there's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes and it's hard to see, like, are they making progress? But being able to see, yes, we are, and look at this funding that we got, and these are the things that we are doing. So I think that would be a big one, to kind of show progress with that. It's never going to be finished, but that would probably be one big
some progress
thing.
Though.
Yeah, no, to show that, that we are moving forward and that we did receive funding and that we did the things that we said we were going to do. One of the biggest things also was, a big support for public safety. And I think, Sheriff Lewis has mentioned this numerous times, my administration supports him and his office and our deputies 100%. Right now, we get to show a brand new sheriff's office and we get to show a full staff. I mean, it's very rare in the state of Maryland right now that we have no openings. And I think there's probably just a few from people that have just retired. But we have people in the academy ready to go. So to sit there and say that we are fully staffed is really great. So I think to show that support of public safety, and the last thing, I talked about was education, education and supporting education. And in this last budget, which is big for you. Yeah. And in this last budget, we were able to fully fund their ask. And I know it's not just about throwing money, at an issue, but showing that we do support education and that education is important in this community, I think was really important. So I think we have really stayed on the path of the campaign promises that we've made. I don't think if anybody was to look back at any of the forums that I did or the interviews that I did while I was running, I don't think that there's anything that we haven't really tackled and accomplished. We wanted to make government more efficient. We wanted to put the right people in place. And I feel like hires like Tracy Taylor and hires like Adam Corey and hires like Donna O'Hara and Chris Tyler out at our corrections, these are all, people that
great people.
They're great people. They're wonderful people, and they have they're very passionate about what they do. So if I had to pick one thing, summarizing all of that, if I had to pick really one thing, I would probably say the progress that we've made on water and sewer. And I'm hoping that once we get those awards, which should happen in the next couple months, that people will see that we are moving forward with that. So
nice. Now, my response to him was, rather not the landfill will be where it needs to be. I know that when I spoke to Adam, he was saying it should be like within the next year or so if we stay on. So I'm thinking as you progress in that.
Cell? Yeah, the cell being developed. Yeah, I mean, that was always, the plan. I never, it doesn't, it's very interesting. You never know what people are going to grasp onto to be critics of. And so a problem, a decade-long problem, and it's so obvious that it's a decade-long problem.
Absolutely.
This is not a 2-year problem.
No.
And to sit there and if anybody believes anything that's being said about this being a 2-year problem, I mean, and those people that actually do their due diligence and go out and look at the landfill or actually just talk to Adam, they realize, okay, this is a decade-long issue. This is not a Julie issue. Right. And I really don't blame any sort of administration. It's just this is a problem that has occurred, and here we are where we're kind of up against a deadline. And there were some delays, that happened before I was executive. Delays in construction, delays on funding from the council. So these are things that just happened, and it's sort of caught up to us. And so we've been doing our best to try to deter the trash, and it's very temporary. As soon as we get Cell 7 open, which should be hopefully in May or June of next year, we should be able to breathe easy for a few minutes and then figure out what that expansion looks like.
But it will be progress.
Oh, yeah.
See, I was thinking
what people, not to cut you off, but what people don't realize is when I started as executive, Cell 10 was not open, Cell 8 was not open, and Cell 7 was not even built yet. yet. So they were in the process of cell 10. So cell 10 was completed under my administration. Cell 8 was completed under my administration. It's just that they filled up a lot quicker. So cell 7 just happens to be the last cell. So when we came in, we were already kind of in a crisis, and we alleviated that crisis at least for a year and a half by having cell 10 and cell 8 done, completed. So there already is progress, because it's not like those cells were done when I came in.
Right. I would like to, what I was thinking about a while ago, Mr. Corbin, who's been here for 50 years, he probably could tell you what has been going on over the years and how this has been a problem because I think I've heard that there was some digging being done and you found out there was trash already there. So I'm pretty sure him being there 50 years, he's probably seen some things that he may not want to talk about.
Yeah. So when that site has been a landfill for a while, before we started going up, before it became Mount Trash. Right. So
I remember
the way it was done, and this was done years and years and years ago, decades ago. I mean, they would just dig holes in the ground and bury the trash. Well, then we built the landfill on top of that. So now that we're digging out and digging the cells out, in these trenches, you'll see trash. So you're already kind of starting at a negative, because you have to, then kind of move the trash over. So, but that's okay. We're okay. We've been in touch with EA, who is doing the design for Cell 7, so we're right on track with that. So I feel really good with that progress. But things, take time. So we're waiting patiently, but we are not, just going to stand by. We're going to try to get this done as quickly as possible, just like we did with Cell 10 and Cell 8.
Okay. Now on the heels of that good news about these trash coming in and slowed down. Just to silence anyone who's watching this, has the road division seen any trash on the side of the roads increase?
Not that I have seen, especially over the last couple of weeks, but people are going to litter, and I don't, as much as I wish, keeping the tipping fee low or making this easier accessible, it's not going to stop people from throwing trash out the window, unfortunately, or dumping, poor Boundary Street. My goodness, I think my guys clean that up all the time. And it just, it's just the way it is. You can't curve and change and curb people's behavior. You just can't. And so unfortunately, if you have the mindset that you go and eat your McDonald's and throw your bag out the window, by raising a tipping fee $4 or whatever is not changing that. You were doing it beforehand. You're going to continue doing it. So I think people just need to take pride in their county. You know what I mean? And we don't want to live in a county that looks like just trash on the side of the road and whatever else. So, and our guys are still working really hard to keep up with that. So
okay, I'm gonna move right along. You get a lot of critics. You have a whole lot of critics. Actually, believe it or not, it actually even goes over to those of us that actually get these interviews with you. Fake emails. I mean, you get people, I've gotten stalking emails and stuff. How do you deal with all these people in the middle of the night that just be writing craziness about you?
Yeah, I think I actually want to make one correction on that. I don't think I have a lot of critics. I think I have a few that are just really loud. You know what I mean? And so, and they...
With multiple email addresses.
Yeah. They're not really the masses. And one in particular, and I know who you're talking about, it's a really sad situation, for somebody that, worked really hard to help you get elected and was a supporter of yours, to just, turn the way that it happened. And it is a shame. And, and over this past year, I have really tried to forgive this person. There was an opportunity for him to get a job in Annapolis, and that senator that he worked for called me and asked me, "Hey, what do you think? And I said, he will be perfect for what you want." And so then, there was some, charges that were against him, and then there was an expungement ask and all of these things, and I adhered to all of them. Sure, do this, and then just to be greeted, the next day with an ethics complaint for something about me being in DC when we're going up there I was up there for 3 different reasons, but all, 2 of them actually dealt with our congressman and a solar issue that we're having here. But be that as it may, it's just sad. But, when it comes to that kind of stuff, I ignore a lot of it. You probably, you've reached out, people have reached out, "Hey, did you see this? Did you see that?" And most of the time my answer is no, because if you get wrapped up in all the negativity, that's what'll drag you down. So I just, I ignore it. And if they think that they're ever going to break me, not even close. So,
Impressive.
It's fine. It's just, it's sad. It really is sad. And I almost, in a way, feel bad because, and this is how I feel, if they're out and they're talking, and I see different, I've been told about different blogs and different, Facebook posts and pages and things like that. If they're talking about me, then that means that they're leaving everybody else alone. And that's okay.
That's one way to think about it. I mean,
and they can be critics. I'm not going to please everybody, but I think my biggest thing is I wish that they would just be truthful. Like, just tell the truth. You know what I mean? If you have the whole truth and you really don't like a decision that has been made, that's fair. But when you sit here and spin a narrative to try to fit something, that is just not the case, like, that's what's really frustrating to me.
Well, that leads me up to the next question. Do you think that if you didn't have so much criticism on your appointments and things you're doing, do you think things like what happened at the landfill could have been addressed earlier? I mean, again, this is something that I have been given is actually it was brought before council about the problem at the landfill before. And I guess it was tabled. And more important things like saying no to every one of your appointments. Do you think that some of these things could have been taken care of if? Well,
what's really interesting is actually if people did their research, when we had our previous deputy director of public works when I first started, who ended up retiring, when he was here, he came to the council in 2018, and it was before the construction of cells 10, 8, and 7, and he said, we're at the top. We're out of room. We got to build these cells. And the council didn't want to hear it then.
And that was in what year?
That was in 2018.
So that was even before you actually...
Oh, that was before me. This was when Bob Culver was in office. So this was 2 executives ago. So before me, before John.
I would love to get that footage.
Oh, gosh. Well, you can look it up. It's right at a council meeting. I'll get it over to you. But you see that the issues are there. And then in 2022, before I was elected, he wanted to expand the cells, and the council cut the $6.3 million out of the CIP for the expansion at that point in time. So they, so there was a delay from other entities that were not me at all. And so that's my thing about doing the research.
Right.
So when you do the research, it kind of shows those things. So I think that's the biggest thing is that if you're going to say that you're going to deliver the news and deliver, information, at least get all of the information. And not one of those critics has ever asked to interview me, has ever sat down to talk to me.
That was a question I had. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe in the future we can try to set up maybe this being bridging the gap, an opportunity for that to happen in a setting that would be fair for both sides. Sure. I always wondered that part. Now, I want to turn it over to you're actually going towards county executive right now again, and I've noticed I've looked on the Board of Election and your name's the only one there. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but I've heard at least of another person that's running. Am I correct?
Yeah. So I've heard. I will tell you, it's not illegal or whatever for people to claim that they're running for an office and not file yet for the Board of Elections. I had a very difficult time asking people support me financially. You know, people work hard for their dollars.
Right, absolutely.
And if I'm asking you for money to support me as county executive, the least I can do is show you that I'm serious about running. And so I was not willing to ask anybody to have a fundraiser, to do anything without me being filed. And so that's just a personal, personal choice. But I think, people are different. If they feel comfortable, collecting money from people or taking money from people and have their name literally not on the Board of Elections website, I think that sort of speaks volumes. But that's me personally. And I think that county executive is too important of a position to have people say, well, I may run, and so let's just see where I'm at, and I'm going to collect people's money, but I'm not going to put, my money where my mouth is. You know what I mean? You need to show that you're going to do it. So I have not seen anybody file yet, no.
No, exactly. But I've done a little research and Google searches, and I've noticed that there's been money being raised since maybe even earlier than April, but I've seen as far as back as in April. And it is, the person we can say her name is, she's actually one of these city council people, Michelle Gregory. But I don't see an authority line or a treasurer, and I'm thinking you've done this before. Don't you have to have these things?
Oh yeah, yes you do. And I learned. Well, I shouldn't say I learned that. I knew that very well in question A. And this is out there for anybody, but I had somebody tamper with my sign or tamper with the red signs. There was a couple that were printed early on that didn't have authority lines, and then it was decided.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then it was decided that they needed an authority line. So we took stickers and put them on there to make sure there was an authority line, and people people removed those stickers and took pictures and sent it to the Board of Elections, which ended up, it was kind of a hefty fine, which, again, it's just, people just being dishonest. You know what I mean? And that's what's so frustrating is, when you tamper with somebody's stuff and then, who's done the right thing and then, and then you send it off as if it wasn't. So that was a little frustrating. But yes, you have to have an authority line. I know that there were some complaints made. I don't know what the final result was of that. So.
Yeah, we're going to be looking into that as well. I mean, especially with one of the platforms that she says she's running on is transparency. So I'd like to know, where is the money being, here at Bridging the Gap, we're here to do just that. There are not all Republicans or all Democrats that watch us. So some people do vote the party line. So if you're giving money to any candidate, you should know exactly where your money's going. I mean, I don't even know if they give receipts or whatever, but I mean, some of these donations are pretty big. Just saying. And here's another question. Do you do your fundraising in county or out of the county? I
do most of mine in the county. The only time I've decided that I was going to do a fundraiser out of the county is during Mako. But that is, there's a ton of government officials there. There's, people, from our county, people from all over the state. And so it does give an opportunity for those other Republicans who want to support one another to potentially donate. And Mako brings a lot of people. So you do get some businesses that are like, hey, I would love to sponsor that event. So I'm having a fundraiser. It's actually free admission, so I'm not charging anybody to come in, but it is all based on sponsorship. And so it's at Spain Wine Bar. It's in a beautiful location at the top of the Cambria Hotel on August 13th from 6 to 9. And, I'd love to have you guys there if you want to come and just, I mean, it's free. And so, but that's about the only time that I would really fundraise outside the county, because you want, you're running the county here. You know what I mean? You want to have people here. So, and I know that there are people that do some in Annapolis, and for some reason they may do some at another location. Maybe they got a free space or something like that. But I think most of the time you want to try to keep your fundraising in county. My last fundraiser was in the county. So, and
most of your sponsors are right here on the shore.
Yeah. There's a couple of people, I will be honest with you, that really believe in what I'm doing, and so they may live, outside, but they work with, they're a vendor, or they work within, they've worked with Wicomico County in other ways, or they see like, hey, you're doing a great job, so I want to, contribute to you. I also had delegates and senators on the other side of the bridge that say, hey, we really want to support you. So those would be the donations that are outside, but for the most part, the majority of the donations come from here.
By the way, you also mentioned something earlier about you went on a DC trip, and I saw some pictures there. And the unique thing is, the next day I saw the presidential plane go across Wicomico. Yeah. That didn't have any connection, did it?
I wish I could say it did. It did not. So the way that worked was kind of crazy. So I am really active in my women's Republican group, and I'm actually part of, this is a different hat that I wear other than county executive. I'm a part of the Celebrate America. That's my, the head of the, what is it called? Like the department that I'm in, or whatever, the subcommittee that I'm, the committee that I'm a part of. Anyway, they wanted to plan a trip to DC, and so the way that it fell is, so the way that it happens is that if you want to go to the White House, you have to go through your congressional person. So we went through Andy Harris's office. So I reached out back in, February or March, and told them we want to go during the summer. We have a lot of teachers that are in this group, and so they give you the date. So I didn't get to select the date. So it just so happened to be on Tuesday, June or July 15th, and that was the date. And so we just happened to be going to DC for other things, that week. So that was Tuesday. That was on my personal time. So went, with the Women's Federation and, walked through the White House, and actually ended up back in the county for the council meeting for the landfill conversation by 1:30. So I was in DC in the morning, council meeting in the afternoon.
I haven't seen that written down anywhere.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. People don't know that. But you can check the cameras, see what time what time I actually showed back up to work. And then, that Wednesday we got invited. So we knew Congressman Harris was getting an award for limited government, and we got invited to go to this. And it was really kind of nice. I went as the executive, as the representative of Wicomico County, and somebody in his district that was able to help celebrate that award with him. And met, Byron Donalds, who's potentially running for governor in Florida. So we met some really great people, there. And so that was in the evening time. So that was after hours. And then Thursday, we had a lunch and it was kind of funny. They were talking about this lunch, like, oh, she spent county money. No, we paid for it personally. And then we had a meeting with Congressman Harris in the afternoon talking about the solar. So we verified the meeting with him on Wednesday, and then after the award ceremony, chatted with him, and then he said, yes, please come by my office and meet with my staff. So that's what we did. So it just, believe me, I didn't love having to drive. I went there 3 days in a row for 3 different reasons, but it was just the way that it worked out.
Yeah, that day was a really busy day for a lot of us. We also had a delegate and also to another meeting that you're normally at, but you had a lot of stuff you were taking care of, including there was that during that council meeting, again, we did speak to Adam prior to that, actually the day before it. And he was ready. He had his presentation ready. You also had your other department heads. Now, I want to ask 2 questions, or a two-part. I'm going to build up to this. Number 1, do you have a set schedule you have to be there at the office?
As an elected official, no. I mean, you really don't. I really try to make sure, I'm usually one of the first ones there in my office, besides the 2 ladies. Like, I usually beat the director and assistant director. So I'm usually there between 7:15 and 7:30. And then I'm usually there, depending on, till probably about 3:30, 4 o'clock. I usually head home, make sure I take care of my child and my dog, and then from there, if there is a meeting that I need to go to in the evening time, or if there is an interview that I need to do, or if there is, something, and then I'm usually working at home. So, if I'm not out and about, then I'm usually on my computer working at home. So I think a lot of people, you don't see that behind the scenes, so we're putting in the time in the morning, and I really try to be there. I expect my staff to be there. I try to be there. They also know that later in the afternoon is not the best time to reach me, because I'm usually about, like I said, 7:30 to about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then I go home, check on some things at home. I still am a mom, I'm a dog mom and a boy mom, so I got to take care of them. But also, after that, I'm still, kind of working and checking emails all the time, and then I kind of get ready for any afternoon or evening events that I have, whether it's a ribbon cutting or an event here, or a meeting that we go to. So
the reason why I asked that question is I've seen some of the people talk, and they were like, you were out on a field trip while your department head, so you did not have to be clocked in there. You've hired these people, and you're expecting them to be able to handle their job. And that's not that any boss would do that. You expect them to be able to handle it in your absence.
Yeah,
correct?
well, and at the end of the day, the director of administration and the deputy director of administration were both there. So it wasn't like, this was just, it just so happened that this was me planning, a trip with the Women's Federation. And like I said, I didn't plan it for the 15th. That's just what day that it happened to be. But at the end of the day, I actually was back in plenty of time to actually see the landfill situation. But I will tell you, and anybody will say this, when's the last time you've seen me in a council meeting? I don't attend the council meetings. And I'll tell you why, because there are a lot of times where, especially in public comment, it is the most unproductive place that I have been. There, it is the same 6 people that get up and say the same things over and over again. And unfortunately, our county council president has allowed that, platform to be used. And I'm just not going to be a part of it. My mental health doesn't need it. I'm not going to sit there and listen to it. I am typically in my office listening and watching, and I will tell you, and Paula will tell you, Paula Donald.
Oh, yeah.
She will tell you, we were listening to the council meeting the whole way home. Like, she turned it on, after we were done our tour and whatever, and she's, we're listening to it the whole way back. And I told her, I'm like, why are we listening to this right now? But, but it was actually good because we got to hear everything. And then, like I said, I made it back for the majority. I was back before Adam and any of them were done, and was able to reflect with them when they were back in my office. So they were like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm here, we're here, So I think a lot of people just make assumptions and really don't have all of the information. But again,
I'm going to use your words, not a lot of people, the same people.
Right, the same 6.
And
the same 6 people.
Actually, when meeting with Adam, I've also picked up the fact that he doesn't like people to be breathing over his back. He knows what his job is,
What I've noticed are my department heads, which is a really good thing. They take such pride in what they do, and they're really good at what they do. And typically from where they came from, Adam from MDE, Tracy from Maryland Department of Planning, Donna, from where she was, they were consistently...
Even Bunky.
Yeah, Bunky. I mean, yeah, they were consistently praised for the good job that they did. And I'm not saying that everybody needs a pat on the back, but what they are not used to is there is never a thank you for everything that you're doing, ever. They are consistently trying to adhere to the requests. They're getting requests from council, criticism from this person, criticism from that person. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our the people came out to the landfill, and I was actually impressed because he came and tried to do his due diligence. And then the clip that they had of the landfill was great. They did a great job with it. And then went right back and then said nasty things like on their show. So it's just like, it's those things that get so frustrating. My people are trying so hard. And again, they're not trying to, they don't want a, oh, you're amazing and whatever. But what they do expect is, thank you. Thank you for getting us that information. Thank you for working so hard. Thank you, for doing the things that you're doing. And I told them, I said, I don't want you ever to think that your job is a thankless job, but you are not going to get thanks and praise from the other side. You're just not. You're not going to get that, and you've got to stop trying to set yourself up, because it's just, you're going to set yourself up for failure. I will consistently tell you what a great job you do, because I know what a great job they do. But all they want is just somebody to say thank you for that email, or thank you for the work that you do, or hey, you worked really hard on that and we appreciate it. And they just don't get that.
I'm going to change my hats and put on my minister hat and say, that's what God says to you. You do a great job. You may not hear it.
Right.
And sometimes it is, I'm going to say I thank you. And my wife, who's behind the camera, she'll say it also. It is a lot of times a lot you take in without hearing that. But you do a great job. You were talking about not being in the council room. I actually have to give props to Mayor Taylor. Because he gets a lot of ridicule coming in from, but he sits up there and I'm like, man, I don't know how you do it. Because I did see you go up there and actually I think there was a council person that got upset because you don't sit up there anymore. Well, and I had to, and I'll be honest with you, I do give Mayor Taylor a lot of respect for that. I will not put nobody's mental health can sit there and handle that. No. And honestly, be honest,
if our council did the things that they were supposed to, where you're not supposed to be criticizing, you're not supposed to be calling people out by name, whether it me or whoever, if they would actually adhere to their own rules, those same exact individuals have attended meetings that I have hosted, and they know that I don't tolerate that behavior. And guess what? They don't act that way. They come up, they state what they want to. It's actually, whether it's constructive criticism or whether it's a suggestion or, hey, like, this is my comment, and we move on. So I know that they're capable of having couth and some sort of demeanor up there, but they literally choose not to. And that's what's really sad. And unfortunately, I'm just not going to be a part of that. We have too many good things going on, and I think that I think the council honestly has lost a lot of followers because they just don't want to hear that. The people don't want to hear it. I get texts from people all the time like, we're so tired of the same people getting up there saying the same thing over and over again with no truth or evidence to back up their claims. So I think that's just what's frustrating. But I give Randy credit. I will not be doing that. So I do not have the grace in order to do it. And I know that about myself. So it's better for me to remove myself. But Bunky is always there. He's there, and Steve is there, our new assistant director. So.
Well, I will say this also, when talking to Mayor Taylor, he also says he gets up in the morning and he wants to start with Jesus. By midday, he wants to slap somebody. So I'm pretty sure he's... Little
holy, little hood, it's a good balance.
That was exactly what my wife told him. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into our next group of questions. Okay. After 2 years of fight... Okay, because I have a picture of you and I think you were at one of your fundraisers, you actually had the shirt that said fight, and that's exactly what you did for the last 2 years. What persuaded you to run for re-election?
Oh man, that was a lot of prayer, I'll tell you that. I had a long conversation with my husband, and chatted with him, and this first 2 years, besides there were some tough things and battles, but we had our own personal battle with him, and his heart attack that happened. So is this something that I really wanted to do? And I asked him, I said, how do you feel? Should I go back just to teach, and whatever? And he said, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You love what you do. And he was right, I do. And I feel, regardless of what anybody has said, one of the biggest things is that I think any politician, any good politician should ask themselves, and elected officials should say, did I leave the county in a better place? And I very, very strongly feel that we did do that. Better people in place. We have, a great team. We have a lot of things that are going, positively in this county. Just look at the progress we've made. We're moving the library library out. We're going to have a new health department. We have a new CAC building. We are making government more efficient. So just in that aspect, I feel that we
look at the West Side.
Yeah, West Side Task Force. I mean, these are things. I mean, and they're doing amazing things.
They're doing great things.
I mean, my gosh, they're doing great things out there. So
great
things that, and that, just thinking about that probably to somebody that doesn't really know the West Side of the county is like, oh, well, that's so minuscule. I mean, yeah, she did it, but that was minuscule. Do you know? I mean,
that was big.
It was huge. It was huge, and I get so many compliments from like Steve Miller, who works with them on a regular basis, and people having that contact and having the West Side believe in those people and to say, okay, if I have an issue, they know exactly who to go to, and then they can go ahead and relay, and they have those relationships with our staff. It was wonderful. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that they having the voice of what goes on in Wetipquin and Cedar Hill and whatever, and I really hope that they do understand that we are really grateful for them and what they did. But jumping back to the original question, it was, I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? And I just felt that, I needed at least 4 more years, to really, and I think that you'll see, I think there's a lot of stuff, like I told you, we're in the middle of, and I want to see those things to completion. And I think that additional 4 years will do that. So
I do want to say this, she's went on to be with the Lord now. There was a young lady on the West Side, Kim Box, and before she went on, she was able to see that fishing pier at the bridge there. I mean, that was something that you worked on. So, when you like to say at the end of the day, before you turn the lights off, you want to look back and say, what have I done for Wicomico? That right there will go down. And then something
we
big.
have something special planned for that fishing pier and Miss Kim, so.
You're going to get me teary-eyed on camera.
Yeah. So there's a part of me that wishes she really got to see the whole thing, and she was such a big advocate.
She does.
For it.
She will.
Yeah. And we have something special planned for that. So.
Wow. Thank you.
I'm not allowed to say yet, but we have something special planned.
All right. Well, looking back to when you were running for office the first time, what are some of the major accomplishments that your administration has done?
Since we ran before, up until now. Well,
you mentioned some earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've talked about it. I think again, it's following through with the things that we said. Like we talked about the water and sewer plan. We've talked about supporting education, supporting public safety. Making sure that we are giving our department heads and the people of our county. We're giving them the resources to make sure that they're able to serve the community, and I think that that's huge. So I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole or dwell too much on it. But again, the things that I feel that we promised, I think that we delivered on. Maybe not in the way that we originally thought it would happen, but and I feel that everything that we have done has been positive. There's nothing that my administration or decisions that we have made was made with nefarious intent. Everything was for the betterment of the community. Did everybody agree with it? Absolutely not.
No.
And we know that. You know what I mean? But that's okay. But there was nothing that we have done that wasn't for the betterment of the community. I mean, if you look, West Side representation, we have that now. When you look at new developers coming in and we have St. John's property, which is huge. They're building right near the sheriff's office. You see that building going up. You see the new library. We just had the unveiling of the new plans of the library. We helped do that. And the Parsonsburg Library, and then the CAC building, and then the health department, and all of these different, entities. So I think people are starting to see those changes and the things that we've said. So I don't know, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. So we've got a lot more to do. So
one thing I can say that, again, in comparison, it's good comparison with you and Mayor Taylor, both of y'all set out, and there were some things you knew people weren't going to be comfortable with, but you set out to do it and you did it. This is like something new to this area. We've never had we've always had for the most part, a Republican county executive, but never a Republican city mayor. Has the relationship with the city gotten better?
Yeah, I actually, and before Mayor Taylor was elected, even when Mayor... Well, yeah, Jack Heath, and even when Jake was here, just for that short of period of time, one of our biggest things was, improving those relationships with the city. And Andy Kitzrow, who is now with the town of Easton, Andy and I did, I think, a really great job at being able to, setting aside any city differences, and we could, go and, off the clock and just have a conversation and just say, okay, hey, what are we doing here? So that's definitely a loss. So I'll be interested to see who Mayor Taylor brings in, because we want to keep that relationship going. I think he feels very comfortable calling me. I have no problem calling him. There is no animosity. There are things that he does that we might not agree with. There's probably things that we do that he doesn't agree with. But I think at the end of the day, that I think that we can come together and work together.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I think that goes with the city council too. On Andy's last day, I was able to talk to
the city council.
The city council president. I was able to talk to Angela Blake was there. As one of the city council women. So we were able to set all of any differences aside and just sort of celebrate, Andy and leaving and whatever else. So I think that at the end of the day, I think that we are able to come together when it really matters and do what is best for the people. So
all right, well, in closing out here, two things I want to say. By the way, Andy's parents, Colin and I had the opportunity to knock on his door, and his parents actually signed for term limits.
Oh,
just
nice.
wanted to say that.
That was nice. Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to say is I brought this up when the president of the county council was here. Actually, I brought up in a chopping up. I'm thinking that one of the problems, the reason why the executive branch is always like kind of getting a side eye from the legislative is because I think the council president should not be known as the council president on either level. Maybe the speaker of the council, because if you're the executive, what's the president? And it can be confusing even to them. Do you think that would help if it was the speaker of the council? I don't think it has anything to do with titles. I think it has to do with personalities. And I think that it's very difficult sometimes, for the council to really understand their legislative role. What I hope is that in this next election, because it seems like there's going to be a different council, which I will personally say I'm pretty happy with. But in all honesty, I really hope that whoever is elected, and some of the people that I've talked to about who's potentially going to run, I just, because they asked me, what is it that you want to see? You're obviously running again, so let's assume you get elected. What are some things that you want to see? What I want to see is that the first order of business is not to just see what the employees and the executive are doing wrong, because we are all Wacomico County. We're all Wacomico County, and I think that they think it makes them look better, like, oh, look at how superior the legislative branch is comparative to the executive branch. It doesn't. It makes both sides look bad. It does. It makes both sides look bad. And so what I'm hoping is that we have a group of individuals that says, we respect you as the executive, and we want you to respect us as the legislators. And we are hoping that we can somehow work together to figure out, for the betterment of this county. And I will tell you, and I really hope that every council person, if they watch this, I really hope what they reflect on is, if they look at all the legislation that they have done in the 2.5 years, besides the legislation that Councilman Wynn has done, and the bamboo that Councilman Hastings did, because James has done a couple of things, and then the fire tax credit that was James that Shane ended up kind of like taking over and whatever else. Besides those, every other piece of legislation was something against against the executive branch. Wow. And
trying to strip power from the executive branch.
Wow.
And so, again, they keep saying, well, there's no oversight or there's no oversight. No, who doesn't have oversight is the legislative branch. There is no oversight on that side. We can't do anything about their budget. We can't do anything about laws that they pass. They will just, put things out there and it's crazy to me how much power they have legislated for themselves, and it's kind of it's a little frustrating, and my new assistant director of administration is the newest member coming in, and he has said, I have never in my life seen a group of individuals and how they treat a county executive. It's just not done. And not that I'm expecting royal treatment, but what I am expecting is respect.
Well, what we're expecting as taxpayers is that.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day, like I said, if you go back and you look at their big pieces of legislation, all of it is against the executive office. Wow. And so it's like, did you really elect those individuals for that? Or did you elect individuals to make life better for you? So right now we have a fireman tax credit, which is great. We have, some something on bamboo where you can't plant new bamboo because it is invasive and it can hurt, other areas. And then everything else is against the county executive. And so I think that is very telling if you look at what's passed. And so that's what's really frustrating, is that things that are brought up. And so what my hope is that we remove the focus of trying to look, at one side and trying to make them look bad and call them out, and really say, okay, we are going to pass legislation and we are going to be the legislators for 104,000 people, not for our personal vendettas against, a branch of government. So that's kind of what my hope is.
Thank you. I'm impressed in what you have done through it all that, but I would really like to see what you can do with 4 years without all the other mess.
Well, and I think that will, if we get 7 new council or 6 new council, I know James is rerunning, I think, from what you've said. But if we get, new council people, it will be amazing to see, because I have a strange feeling. Look, I might end up back up at the table with them. You never know. But it will be amazing to see the difference in leadership, and amazing to see the difference in what is important, because we have had, and this is 2.5 years of a group of individuals where their main focus is to try to make the employees, fearful, or make the executive look bad. And the thing is that this is not me just saying it. Look back at their legislation. Look back at the bills that they've done in the last 2 years, and I bet you could count off 90% of them are against the executive office.
Look back on PAC 14.
Or PAC 14, yes, but you can pull right up. You can pull their legislative bills up right online and look at them very quickly. So, but that's my hope. So.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming on Bridging the Gap, and thank you all for being here with us. This has been another Bridging the Gap. Have a great one.